perhaps the most commonly asked question that I see both on, say, like RC groups or even like Hobby Squawk and online and any of the number of Facebook pages that are kind of dedicated to remote control aircraft is, what kind of paint do you use on foam? And I thought this was a great opportunity here that we have the P-51 here on the table, and it's got all sorts of custom paint work on it, to kind of go through some of the different paints that I used on it that are all safe for use on foam. Unique to the P-51, and I imagine this will be exactly the same for the P-47 or any of the E-flite models that are silver, is people wanting to say, well, what do I use for touch-up paint on the silver? How do I get that to match? It's not something as easily as some of the base colors that you can take down to, let's say, your local hardware store and have them mix up the paint. So I bought a number of different types of silver, and I found that this little bottle of Tamiya Chrome Silver, it's number X11, item number, is almost a perfect match for touching up the silver on the E-flite P-51. I had to use this quite a bit wherever I peeled the factory decals off, and I needed to cover the bare foam that was left behind when the decals came out. So this is acrylic based paint. Tamiya Chrome Silver goes on very easily. It took maybe just like 2 or 3 coats just to build up to the level that the factory paint was, so you don't really see an indentation where the decal was. I mean, you probably don't realize it, but most of the area on this airplane has been painted with this, because I had to peel off the decals on the tail, a little bit on the fuselage, and quite a bit of work on the nose that were covered up by factory decals. So this Tamiya paint works outstanding and is safe for foam, and it's almost an exact match as well. For the yellow paint, I wanted it to be historically correct, so if I couldn't really use just a commercial grade spray paint, I wanted it to be as close to accurate as possible for the right shade of yellow. And for that, I used Model Master Acrylic Insignia Yellow. It seemed to be the closest match to what the yellow was that they would have used on the actual P-51. And for this, I airbrushed it pretty much straight out of the bottle. Just poured it into my airbrush and airbrushed the entire nose. I will say that it took a lot more paint than I was expecting, but then again, that's quite a bit of surface area. So Model Master Acrylic is perfectly safe for foam as well. You can either brush it on, or you can airbrush it, which I did. I airbrushed the entire nose of the aircraft using Model Master Acrylic. And what's great about the Model Master Acrylic is that it's labeled with the FS number. That's the federal specification number, so you can get the exact color that is needed for U.S. military aircraft. Sometimes you can get lucky and find some pretty close colors from basically commercial grade paints, but I wanted to be as correct as possible, and I knew that the best yellow I could find was Insignia Yellow. So Model Master Acrylic is safe for foam. You can airbrush it or brush it. Next up, on the Invasion stripes, and this is the paint that I primarily use when painting model aircraft for anything that's going to be larger than, let's say, this little detail work around here. I use Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch 2X Ultra Cover Paint and Primer. This stuff I use quite a bit of. The black of the Invasion stripes were done with this. Another can was used for the white. And the red on the aircraft was also done using the 2X as well. And maybe someday I'll even get out my my E-flite Cherokee that I did in all the 2X paint. And that was a lot of paint on that aircraft. And I'll tell you what, this stuff works fantastic. It is foam safe. Does it eat away at the foam at all? At least on the larger planes. I have not experimented with a UMX plane, so let me make sure that that's a little bit different foam, and I want to make sure that I clarify that I don't know what happens if you take a UMX plane and use this on it. But I've used this on multiple E-flite planes with zero problems. In fact, I've even used it on some other model airplanes that are foam and not had any issues. So the Rust-Oleum 2X, and you can find this at hardware stores. In fact, my local grocery store actually carries a huge collection of this, and there are days where it's on sale. Buy one, get one 50% off. So I stock up. I use a lot of black and white because I paint a lot of Invasion stripes. So by all means, this is a perfectly safe paint to use, but do make sure you kind of keep your distance a little bit. I wouldn't get right up there and spray close to the foam. I would say you want to keep a good 6 to 8 inches away, because you don't want the propellant damaging the foam at all. So you will kind of want to build up the layers of paint. Typically I do usually 2 to 3 coats depending on how much bleed through there is on the base layer. Black, obviously, you don't need a lot of color, a lot of coverage to cover it up. Colors like white, for instance, you may need to do a couple other coats. Or you want to use maybe the 2X comes in a white and a gray primer as well. So if you're painting something, let's say like the E-flite Cherokee where it's got all that red on it, and you want to make sure that red is covered, I would recommend using the 2X gray primer first, and then maybe go with the 2X white primer, and then go with your top coat, because you want to make sure you try to cover up that base layer as much as possible. So after you get all your painting done, you get all your weathering done, and you get all your decals on, and everything looks to be done, there's one last thing that I do to pretty much all of my airplanes, and that is to clear coat them. And there are 2 types of clear coat that I've been using quite a bit of. The one is Minwax, and the other one that I just started switching to, which I've been pretty happy with as well, is this Varathane Spar urethane. It's water-based, and get the exterior, because the exterior has UV inhibitors in it. And a UV inhibitor will help protect the foam and protect the paint below it, and it won't yellow over time, which is important if you have an airplane that's all white, let's say like a Piper Cherokee, or the Invasion stripes, where you don't want that white to yellow down over time because of the UV from the sun interacting with the clear coat. So use the exterior, and you can use a couple different types. There's satin, there's a semi-gloss. This here is crystal clear gloss that I used on the P-51 because I really want a bright shine. I use the high gloss as well, like on the E-flite Cherokee and on the EC-1500, because I really want the airplane to pop. You would not use this, let's say, on a like an olive drab P-47 or the P-39 or something like that. That's a flat or matte finish. You're going to want to use something a little different. You're going to want to use their matte finish on that. And then if it's still got some gloss to it, you want to remove it, you could mist some 2X flat over the top of it, not flat black, obviously, flat clear, and help just bring down that gloss level. But for the P-51, and I wanted this thing nice and shiny and glossy and ready for D-Day, so I went with the gloss. And this is brushed on, by the way. Minwax is brush or spray. I've never used the spray, but I have used the brush, and they're both very comparable products. I think I got this from Amazon, and I have a couple different variations of it so I can play around with different gloss levels of gloss. So the 2X you can get at pretty much any hardware store or home improvement store or even grocery store. This I have not found anywhere but online at Amazon, but I think you just got to check your area. The Tamiya paint, you can typically get that at either from Amazon or a hobby shop. If your hobby shop carries a lot of really high quality model paints, you could find that there. And the same with the Model Master Acrylic, you could find that either on Amazon. You may find this at Hobby Lobby. They have somewhat of a selection of it, but usually a really good hobby shop or Amazon will have that. And then finally, while it's not necessarily a paint, it's an important piece of the equipment that you need to paint, and that is masking tape. And what I use is the yellow Tamiya mask tape. They have a 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, and I think they have maybe like a 3/8 inch. I use this quite a bit. This is the 6mm tape that I use the most of. And one thing you want to do is when you get ready to put it down on the foam, you're going to want to cut the tack down a little bit on the tape. So you want to pull it off, stick it on your pant leg a few times, and then go ahead and stick it on the model. And what you want to do is you want to cut down on the stickiness of that tape, so when you peel it off, it doesn't peel the base layer off as well. One word of warning though, if you have pets, like I do, I have cats, and if you do that too many times to your pants, you will get cat hair all over your airplane model, and you need to make sure you don't paint over the cat hair, because it will be in there forever then. So little tip there. Otherwise, I will use like the yellow frog tape and do the same thing. I'll use the thicker stuff, so I'll do the fine detail with the Tamiya, and then use the yellow frog tape, and I will do the same thing where I stick it on my pant leg a couple times, and then lay it down on top of the airplane with some newspaper. You want the least amount of tape touching the factory paint as possible, because you do not want to peel any of that back off. But otherwise, that's kind of the equipment that I use to paint the E-flite P-51, and I've used these same products in a host of different RC airplanes and have had wonderful luck. Plus, the best thing is that if you scratch it, you ding it, worse, even terrible, you crash it, you have all the paints necessary to do all your repair work, and you have them available to you. So if they're plastic details, let's say like the exhaust stack, any type of regular model paint will work because it's plastic. It's not foam. So you just want to be more aware of what you want to put on the foam, and you have a little bit more flexibility with what you put on the plastic pieces. But that's what I use on the P-51. And of course, if you guys got any questions, by all means, leave them in the comment section below, and I'm more than happy to help you guys out. So if you got anything else, just let me know, and be sure to subscribe to the page for more on my other RC projects that are coming up.